to everyone to this 10th webinar in the series of Hyperion Heritage Science webinars. My name is Marina Martínez de Pinillos González, paleoanthropologist at the National Research Center on Human Evolution in Burgos, Spain, and project manager of the Hyperion Heritage Science in the paleontological area. Please, let me give you a short introduction about the important facilities offered by Hyperion platform for paleontology research. The equipment placed at the CNIE are available through the fixed lab calls and are open to the scientific community in general and to the paleoanthropological field in particular. Thus, the CNIE contributes its background in the paleontological and archaeological studies of geochronology and material characterization, especially focused on micro-computed tomography. The main objective of the geochronology laboratories is to determine geologists on the quaternary. Currently, 4 dating methods are available at CNIE through the fixed lab calls. They are paleomagnetism, luminescence, electrospin resonance, and uranium series. The combination of these 4 techniques in a single space, which includes highly specialized researchers and technicians, allows comparative studies of data to be carried out, complementing process developing new methodologies due to the transversal and cross in which all of them are immersed. On the other hand, the micro-CT laboratories boast a wide range of equipment and the elemental characterization of material, both organic and also inorganic. The application of this technique is particularly useful in paleontology for the study of fossil remains. Its non-destructive methodology permits the research data, different variables, versus original samples. Thus, in the last, a new generation of non-invasive tools has helped to safeguard the fossil records, allowing a virtual sharing and handling of fossils to ensure its integrity. Just to it is offered by Hyperion, not only provides access to the service offered, but also advise users on the technique to use with regard to the characteristics of their samples and how to prepare it. Now it's to introduce the speakers who are going to tell us about some of the important tools available at Hyperion platform that are useful in paleontology research. The first speaker is Joaquín Arroyo-Cabrales. He works at the National Institute of Anthropology and History, federal agency, takes care of the historical, archaeological, and paleontological heritage. He is currently the head of the archaeological lab, and he's also in charge of the paleontological collection. He has a biology PhD from Texas Tech University, and currently is member of the Mexican Researchers System. His researchers focus on the late quaternary vertebrates and their contribution for understanding the paleoenvironments in which humans survive in the Americas. I'd like to remind all the participants that this session and that opportunity to ask questions to our speakers. So as Matthias said, if you wish, you can write them at the bottom of the Zoom screens in the answers function, and we will try to do our best to answer all of them. So now I'd like to turn over the screens to Joaquín Arroyo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marina, and thank you to all the IPERION HS team for allowing me to participate here. Let me share my presentation. Oh, okay. Thanks again. I will talk about an important paleontological site that was just found in the past 2 years nearby Mexico City, actually to the north where the new Mexican airport is being built. And that's why I have stated, fortunately, this big construction allow us to find all this big, large amount of remains. So I will talk briefly about this. Here's a map just to show you where we are in central Mexico City. On the left map, you can see the central portion, and there is where Mexico City is, where because of all the construction that is going on, we have found many remains of mammoths, mostly along what used to be, and you can see a view of what used to be the lake of Texcoco Lake, and offset a couple of dots with the places where we are taking research recently. In fact, the one on the right that says SL, it goes for Santa Lucia, and where it is where the actual new airport is being built. So starting in late 2019, there was started the subject when this big airport was started to be built, and right there they start to find mammoth remains. So because of that, in the middle of last year, initiate a research project in order to understand better what at the deposit, not just study the remains, that there's many remains, and I will show you numbers for that, but also to understand how they came to be there. So as mentioned, here we have the area. There's more than 4,500 hectares that are covered. And in that area, we have found at least 532 excavation points where we have found remains, not just from mammoths, that is the main animal that we have found, but we have at least other 10 to 15 species, including big animals like sloths or horses, camel, bison, also a saber-toothed cat. So, and here I wanted to show you how big are the deposits. These walls have more than 20 meters, and in those the geologists and sedimentologists are studying very carefully in order to understand the environment. Probably in about 200,000 years, we don't have yet days, and certainly from what Marina was mentioning at some point, the project could make use of some of those resources. We currently have material that is being dated using AMS radiocarbon date, but certainly using other techniques will allow to test our initial dates.
Si sente.
Joaquín, I'm afraid we can't hear you. There seems to be a problem with your microphone.
Oh, now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh,
please
sorry.
go ahead. Thank you.
Sorry. Sorry, I just keep going on this slide. Some of the studies where we could use some of the IPERION HS facilities are, for example, the ecological studies, where we are taking samples to undertake stable isotopes analysis in order to learn about the feeding behavior of this animal. Either they ate grass or they ate leaves and other forbs from forests, and that's one thing that we are undertaking, but certainly following other techniques will be here in Mexico. We are only able to process carbon and oxygen, while nitrogen has not been undertaken, and could be a very good addition to this study. Another quite important analysis that we are starting as well, and that where we could also use some of the IPERION HS facilities, are the paleogenomic studies. And for that, we have available, as you can imagine, a huge sample of mammoths, at least, also as mentioned, camels and other animals, but at least for mammoths, we have over 600 specimens. At least half of those we will have available, either mandibles or upper tooth, that upper molar that we could use for sample dentine, and from there start to doing this study in order to pursue further knowledge of the animal population. Certainly, there have been studies so far, mostly in the northern hemisphere, and mostly on the northern part of the continents because of the preservation of the collagen. But we hope now that with this large sample, we can understand better what's happening with this animal in the southern part of the distribution. In the maps, you can see that where had been samples for DNA, ancient DNA studies, and mostly those are on the northern part, as mentioned, and here in North America, mostly in northern United States. So we hope we can provide enough material to get samples for learning more about the population of this animal. Also, other important issues are the possible human mammoth interactions. Certainly, we are aware of this happening in Basin of Mexico, but having this large sample, we should be able to learn more. And in fact, there's one hypothesis that 2 or 3 years ago, colleagues of mine, Luis Cordova, mentioned about possible mammoth traps in Tultepec, nearby Santa Lucia. So we need to undertake also quite a specialized sedimentological analysis to understand better our capacity. And finally, certainly the most important question that everybody will have is, why do they die? Did they die in these deposits? Again, we are talking on that deposit that even within interval of 3,000 or 4,000 years, we have over 600 mammoth animals dead there. So we need to learn what's happening, if what was going on the last glaciation is not the Wisconsin glaciation hit on these animals, the climate change, and that's important to learn what happened in the past and to figure what's happening in the future, as right now COP26 is figuring, or how much impact a human have over these animals with if they hunt actively, just use animals carcasses of were stuck at the mud on the edge of the lake. So anyway, even in fact, just last year there was this big event in Africa, in Southern Africa, with many elephants being dead at the time, and just of the natural cause, we to follow this the research over there and figure see if we can some of the same causes for us. And finally, in fact, also the verifying there's one of the latest hypotheses of the Pleistocene extinction, that is the meteor falling into the America, in fact, in northern U.S. in the Michigan Lake, but there's some evidence in Mexico that could also be material from that event in some of the sediments in the Mexican deposit. So that's another hypothesis we need to follow. And I thank you for your review of this presentation.
Thank you very much, Joaquin, for this really interesting talk. Well, now I would like to introduce the second speaker, Belén Notario Collado. She has a degree in physics and a PhD in physics in the branch of material science, University of Valladolid in Spain. And since 2016, she is the technician in charge of the microscopy and micro-computed tomography laboratory at the National Research Center on Human Evolution in Burgos, Spain. Since then, she has been in charge of action of the laboratory and its proper functioning, and samples that cover different branches of science are analyzed and studied, from paleoanthropology and geology to material science, medicine, and among others. So please, Belén, I would like to hand over the screen to you, and well, thank you very much to be here.
Thank you very much, Marina, for your introduction. So hello, everybody. As Marina said, I am Belén Notario, the microscopy and micro-computed tomography lab at CNIE. So today we are going to see a very nice example of the micro-computed tomography technique can help in the field of paleontology. So for this, I have prepared this short presentation entitled Unearthing Our Ancestors and Toto and the Use of Micro-Computed Tomography. So before showing the example that I have prepared, let's do for you a brief introduction to the micro-computed tomography technique. Probably most of you are familiar with this technique, but in case, so in the figure that you can see, there is a sketch of a typical setup to perform X-ray computed tomography. As we can observe, an X-ray source and a flat panel detector are set in front of each other. So the fundamentals of these techniques are based on the interaction between radiation and matter. That is to say, the transmitted radiation is the information captured by a detection system, that is to say, the detector as an image. Then the analysis of the acquired radiographies provides qualitative and quantitative scientific results in terms of density profile, inspection, particles dispersion, etc. So in a more visual way, how the image acquisition process will take place. As I said, the sample is placed in between the detector and the source, and it rotates around 360 degrees. So during its movement, many radiographs are acquired. So these radiographs are then processed using a mathematical algorithm that will provide a three-dimensional reconstruction of the sample in which we can observe the inside of it at different slices. But how can the computed tomography technique help us in the field of paleontology? Although it seems, we can say, incredible, this technique is being used more and more in this field of research. As Marina said at the beginning, this is a non-invasive technique that has helped a lot the paleontology research field to figure out different kind of problems. So let's see in this case a nice example carried out at our facilities in which this technique has been used. So this study was born from the collaboration of the National Research Center on Human Evolution, the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History, and the National Museums of Kenya. The work was carried out at Panga JCD site. Panga JCD is located on the Kenyan coast. It has been an important site for human origins research since excavation began in 2010. In 2017, a group of archaeologists found a small pit about 3 meters below the current cave floor. The circular pit contained tightly clustered, highly decomposed and fragile bones, requiring stabilization and plastering in the field. Once plastered, the cast remains were brought first to the National Museum in Nairobi for an initial exam, in which the existence of the articulated spine of a mature individual, as well as 2 teeth, was revealed, suggesting that these remains could be human. It was later decided to move the block up to the laboratories of the National Research Center on Human Evolution in Burgos, Spain, so that the physical excavation of the bones could continue with the support of image analysis techniques such as microtomography. So using this technique, it was revealed that the block contained more teeth, other anatomical elements that were difficult to visualize, and even shells. All of them were difficult to visualize due to the similar density between the fossil and the concretion. For this reason, the manual restoration work continued to be able to scan smaller blocks in which it was easier to identify the different elements that made up the block, since the pieces could not be removed from the block due to their delicate state of conservation. So in the right image, you can try to observe that it's not easy to figure out the different parts that were detected. So the surprise began to unfold. The block contained the partial unarticulated skeleton of a boy of about 3 years of age in a flexed position, lying on his right side with front toward the chest. This represents a tailless burial with elaborate preparation. As we can see, the head rotated relative to the rest of the body, and the first 3 cervical vertebrae were still articulated to the base of the skull. This type of dislocation is typical of burials in which the head rests like in a pillow. So when this base disappears, the neck disarticulates. So in order to continue studying the block and due to its great instability, the researchers decided to separate the block in 2 large pieces. One of them contained the base of the jaw and the neck, while the other contained the spine along with the ribs, a clavicle, and other more degraded fragments like a piece of the pelvis. With the manual cleaning of one of the fragments, part of the child's skull and some children's teeth were discovered. Likewise, it was seen that all the bones were perfectly articulated. In addition, the body was covered with earth very shortly after his death to protect it from deterioration, as the earth surrounding the body seemed to be different from the earth at the level at which the body was excavated. These facts supported the hypothesis of that the tomb was deliberately excavated, the body carefully deposited, and then covered with earth. This earth was later analyzed by electron microscopy in the lab in order to see its composition. So the sediment comprises 5 samples collected close to the human remains. 3 samples were retrieved close to the maxilla, the face, and inside the cranial ball, while the other 2 were collected close to the occipital bone and the postcranial perimeter. So after analyzing these grains in the SEM, inconclusive results were achieved. Apart from the use of the micro-computed tomography, many other studies were carried out in our laboratories to confirm the age and the hypothesis of the oldest human burial. For instance, luminescence dating securely places Emtotos at 78,000 years ago, making it the oldest known human burial in Africa. The study of the morphology, teeth, and the skull confirmed that the body belonged to our species. Screening of the skeletal elements for ancient DNA proved inconclusive. Excavation of the sediment block that encased the skeletal elements with the present fauna, but that were consistent layers. So with all this information, it was concluded that a child buried at the mouth of the Pangajasahiti cave 68,000 years ago shows the oldest human burial in Africa, revealing how Middle Stone Age population interact with death. So therefore, we have just seen how the micro-computed tomography technique can elucidate important results in the field of paleontology, giving rise, as in this case, to a study published this year in the journal Nature. So just in case you want more information about this study, you have a link to a nice video that has been made dissemination of this work.